What causes your telephoto shots to come out blurry and not sharp? It can be really frustrating because you think you're doing everything right, and then your photos just kind of look like crap. So in today's video, I want to go over some corrective measures that you can bring with you out into the field next time you go shooting with your telephoto. The first thing I want to talk about is something that's not really even in your control. It's called atmospheric lensing or atmospheric distortion. And basically it's the way light bends when it enters the Earth's atmosphere. A good example of this is when you're looking down a road in summer and you can see the heat coming off the road. That is atmospheric distortion. It's the heat basically making the whole scene wavy. So if there's a car on the distance or a boat on the water, that heat is actually distorting your image. So you'll never actually get a good sharp photo because that heat is working against you. And aside from the heat, there's other things that can cause a blurry photo at long distances, and that's smog, fog, snow, misty rain, anything that's really in the atmosphere. Because when you're shooting at such long distances, this lens is going to compress the crap out of that scene. So it's really going to see absolutely everything from the front of the lens to your subject and just squish it all together. And that's really going to create a blurry, not sharp photo. The best way to combat this is to plan ahead. Hop on your weather app, take a look, see what's in the forecast, and kind of plan around it. Shooting in clearer conditions will always yield better results. The next culprit on the list is vibrations. When you're shooting at 200 millimeters, 400 millimeters, 800 millimeters, the smallest little vibration in this lens will cause your photo to be blurry. Because when you're shooting at such long distance like that, everything is amplified. The best way to combat vibration is to get this thing on a tripod and use a little remote shutter. They're pretty cheap on Amazon, I'll link one below. Or the free option is go into your camera settings and enable a 2-second timer, 10-second timer, anything like that. So you can take your hands off your camera when you're taking the shot and you won't have any movement whatsoever. But on the other hand, if you're like me and you like to shoot a lot of things handheld, especially for me when I'm shooting birds, I don't want to be stuck on a tripod. I want to be moving around. I need to be mobile. So what I normally do is if I'm shooting at 200 millimeters on this, I'll double that for my shutter speed. So 200 millimeters, that means my shutter speed is going to be minimum 1/400. And if I'm shooting at 400 millimeters, then I'm going to be shooting at 1/800th shutter speed. Now, a lot of times I'm actually shooting at probably a 1/1000 minimum, where whenever I'm shooting birds, because I need to freeze their motion. If their wings are out, I want to freeze that and capture every detail. And if the bird moves a little too fast, you're just not going to get it. That's why I generally shoot at higher shutter speeds, but it is a good rule of thumb. Basically double whatever focal length you're at. 200 millimeters, then you're shooting 1/400th of a second. At the end of the day, a faster shutter speed is the key to freezing motion and getting a sharper shot. Now, one thing you gotta watch out for is your ISO. Balancing shutter speed and ISO is crucial, because if you start pumping up your ISO because you're shooting at faster shutter speeds, eventually there's a tipping point where that ISO is going to start making your photos look crappy and blurry because it's adding so much noise to your photo. It does take a bit of practice and a lot of test shots, but pretty much what I would do is I'd go out, shoot a bunch of shots at different shutter speeds and different ISOs and see where your lens ends up balancing it nicely. Find the tipping point to where the noise just becomes a little too much. Nowadays, there's also editing apps that you can go in and you can remove noise, so you can push the boundaries just a little bit, but if you go too much, you'll get a painterly effect and then it starts to look like AI, and nobody wants that shit. The best thing you can do, which is expensive, but if you can get a lens that's pretty fast, like this one is f2.8, this f2.8 will definitely outshine any f4 telephoto lens because it allows for more light, which means I can keep my ISO lower. And here's just a little bonus tip. You can go onto this website called DxO Mark and look up your lens, and it'll actually tell you where your lens performs best. So I looked up this lens, and it actually performs best at 100 millimeters at f2.8. But it's a good thing to know, because if you're out walking around, you can kind of have it in the back of your head, maybe set this lens to 100 millimeters at f2.8. That way you have the best chances of getting a good shot when you're just out walking around. So I hope this video helped you. If it did, subscribe. I'd love to see you guys back here hanging out in another video. That's all I got for you today. You guys have a good one. Peace.